What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Sacrificially Speaking. I love doing this, catching her off guard because she has no clue what to do when I do this.
Yeah, I feel like he's doing something every time he starts out because the last time he did that, it was because Jasper.
Yep. Don't call his name. He's laying behind us. He'll get up.
He's sleeping. He's fine.
He's sleeping.
Anyway, we're
Jasper's the star of the show now. They don't even want to hear us. They want to see Jasper. His tail's wagging. By the way, y'all can't see it. It's funny.
Anyway, we're going to get started now.
Yeah.
Because it's already going to be a long episode. This is part 2. We're doing a series on Israel. And so the last one, we kind of went over the covenant and the land, the right to the land a little bit. And now we're going over prophecy and fulfillment.
Yes.
This is part 2.
This will be deep, guys.
Yeah, and then what you guys probably want to hear most, but you need this information first, I promise, is about more modern times, and we're going to get into that in the next episode. So stick around, but let's go ahead and jump right into this one.
She thinks we're going to get that next episode. Actually, it's ancient, so it's impossible to separate the two. But let's go.
Anyway.
All right, here we go. It's going to be fun.
Why is prophecy essential to understanding God's sovereignty? I'm really struggling with words today.
Yeah. Well, for the main reason, again, and I'm almost positive, Psalm 90 verse 2, from everlasting to everlasting, He's God. God has a plan that was it was set in eternity past. God is not getting up every day deciding what to do. He's already done all He's ever going to do. And this is a really deep subject, so we're not going to be able to go down this rabbit hole. But the Bible says 6 days He created the heavens and the earth, and the 7th day He rested from all His labor. God is no longer laboring. His plan is unfolding in the earth based on what Paul calls in Romans 8 His foreknowledge. So for those whom He foreknew, He did also predestine to be conformed to the image of His Son. So the plan of God is based on the foreknowledge of God, but it comes from eternity and it runs into the future. And so if you look at prophecy just as time, you'll miss the boat. Also, it is essential, in my opinion, to understand prophecy, Bible prophecy. You need at least some framework of reference, of a timeline of events, of how God has dealt with His people through time. Now, some people will call it dispensation. I'm not a strict dispensationalist. In my opinion, the lines they're not that black and white. Even though I understand dispensational thought, and I'm in agreement that God is working with a group of people. I see this as one covenant, one plan, one eternal plan that started in eternity past. I'm starting to struggle with words now. In the mind of God, John 1 calls it the Logos. This is the mind of God between the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, the counsel of God, looked down through time that did not even exist yet. And they went to the end of the matter, which is eternity future. A new heaven, a new earth, a new Jerusalem, Jesus sitting on the throne, Him being the light of the city, and us ruling and reigning forever and ever. And of His kingdom there will be no ends. And we're going into a new heaven and a new earth that our minds cannot even comprehend. And sometimes I think all of these science fiction writers, talking about traveling to planets, I wondered, why has God put all this vastness out there? I believe we'll be discovering that throughout all eternity. But you go from eternity past to eternity future. And you have to look at prophecy from that perspective and not just from time. Because if you judge everything just by time, you don't understand what's going on. It doesn't make sense. But if you judge it from His perspective the best you can in our, limited ability to comprehend, then it gives you a a framework of reference. And then what you do, again, it's an eternal plan, but you come back and set you some stakes in the ground of just basic dealings of God with man through the plan of the ages. Some people will do that based on covenants. They'll do it based on covenants. Some people will do that based on dispensations or time frames. Some people will do that based on, they'll go from exile to exile, or whatever. I look at it as one entire plan and God working with groups of people to fulfill that plan. But for my mind's sake, just for my mind's sake, I start with Adam and Eve when time starts. I understand that God determined the plan of redemption before the foundations of the world. He chose us in Him before the foundation of the world. So there was a lot that God did in eternity past. In other words, before time began. But from Adam, I can follow from Adam markers up to Genesis 6, the events there, Genesis 12, Genesis 11, the Tower of Babel, Genesis 12, the covenants, and then I can start following this. And I know, and just in general, let me just throw this out here in general, I know from Adam to Christ is 4,000 years, right? I know basically what that 4,000 years was about. Everything in it is in the Old Testament concealed, is in the New Testament revealed. Everything in there is pointing to Christ. Every tabernacle, every sacrifice, the priestly outfits, everything is pointing to Christ. Every covenant is all pointing to Christ. Everything is pointing to Jesus. And then when you get to Christ, then I know a little bit of a time frame. And there's only one or two things that are even up for serious theological discussion. Number one, is there a rapture? Is there a catching away of the church? And when will that be? Will that be before the tribulation, middle tribulation, at the end of the tribulation? Or from Jesus till now, are we building the kingdom on the earth and the earth is going to get better and better and better? I don't even subscribe to that.
I haven't even heard of that.
And there's a little more to it, but I'm
pre-post.
trying to simplify it, okay, for people to get a framework. So I know from Christ that the next great event that's going to happen is, I believe, the catching away of the church. Now that's based on 36 years of me studying. But some people don't believe that. Well, if you don't believe that, then the next event is the appearance of the Antichrist. All right? Mm-hmm. From the appearance of the Antichrist and the beginning in Revelation chapter 6, I believe it is, from there forward, I know exactly what's going to happen because the Bible tells me in the book of Daniel, some in Ezekiel, Revelation, some in Malachi, the prophetic books, but it tells me exactly what's going to happen in this 7-year period called tribulation. And then I know exactly what's going to happen at the end of 7 years. Jesus is coming back, and there'll be a 1,000 millennial reign on the earth. Satan is put in the bottomless pit. And then at the end of the 1,000-year reign, I know exactly what's going to happen. Satan will be loosed for a little while out of the pit. He'll deceive the nations. And then God's final judgment will come on him, and he'll be cast into the lake of fire forever. And then God will create a new heaven, a new earth, and we'll go into eternity future, which can be found in Isaiah 66 and other passages. You get over into Revelation 20, the end of Revelation 20 and 21. But
I need to preach Revelations more.
Yeah, well, I did. It takes a long time.
Sorry, that was off topic.
But anyhow, my point is, if you know a few of those pieces, you don't have to know everything. Then you take the Bible. You understand it's an eternal plan, and you have a few of those pieces of the puzzle. It's kind of like if I dumped a puzzle out here, first thing you're going to try to do is find the border. Mm-hmm. Because if you can find the border, you can work your way from the outside in. It's the same way with Bible prophecy. And if you'll look at it that way, you won't battle near as much confusion as you're plowing through prophetic passages. Now, like I said, within that framework, there's a couple things that's up for debate.
Yeah.
But most of what I just shared, theologically, is established.
Well, you say that, but I feel like I've heard people do it.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's because a lot of people haven't studied, much, or they're just into every kind of weird thing in the world. But I'm just saying, on the grander theological scale.
Yeah.
Amongst,
is there a standard for like what can be debated and what shouldn't be debated when it comes to like theologians?
Well, there used to be. There's not anymore, but there used to be.
I was wondering.
Yeah, but no, there's not anymore. Now it's like everything is open for debate because Jesus didn't mean what he said, and there's not even a real devil or anything like that. So you have various circles. I'm just saying within standard traditional theology, this is a pretty traditional prophetic timeline that you can run the course by. And then you just look at all of those covenants, all the things we talked about in the last session, as just how God is working with people to fulfill his plan, Mm-hmm. So God works with people and with letting them try to do what's right in their own eyes. Then he gives them judges. Judges don't work. They cry out for kings. He gives them a king. And kings don't work out too good, and then they go into exiles and bondages, and you know what I mean. And
mm-hmm.
and but if you get bogged down in every single one of those events, you miss the bigger picture. This is God working with his people and bringing them into the plan of redemption. So anyway, I know it's a long answer, and I hate to do that. That's the reason I said we might have to break this one up a little bit, because when we get to talking about Bible prophecy and events specifically, you're talking about just the book of Revelation. I've taught well over a year on Sunday morning and Sunday night, Wednesday night, multiple times, and never covered the same thing twice.
Well, I forget that I have a pastor that can talk for 45 minutes on one question sometimes.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Anyway, what do scholars mean when they call Israel the proof text of prophecy? I also made this text really small for some reason, which is why I'm like...
It depends on who you're talking to on that.
Well, I'm talking to you, so what does it mean?
Okay, so let me tell you what I would mean by that.
Okay.
Israel's the proof text of prophecy. In other words, the fact that Israel has been through as much as they've been through, the size that they are, lost what they've lost, recovered, regained, and been blessed, and are still here in existence, despite being surrounded by enemies that seek their destruction, is the proof text that God does what he says. That's what most people mean when they say that. Now, there's some theologians that are out there, and I've heard them use that phrase, and that's not what they mean. And so they'll go down another hole, but that's what I mean when I say that.
Okay.
That I know that I can look at Israel and the God who never sleeps and slumbers and watches over Israel, if he's promised that to them, and I'm the righteous seed of Abraham by faith, then I have those same promises over me, right?
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to read scripture first for this one, and then I'll ask the question.
Mm-hmm.
So Isaiah 66:8. Who has heard such a thing? Who has seen such things? Can a land be born in one day? Can a nation be given birth all at once?
Yeah.
So one day prophecy.
Yeah.
Probably
one of the most powerful prophetic passages concerning the nation of Israel in all of the Bible, but especially in the context of our generation.
Yeah, the question was, how does that passage relate to Israel's rebirth in 1948?
Yeah, I mean, well, you got to realize from the carrying away of the children of Israel into Babylonian captivity,
mm-hmm.
all right? From the carrying away into captivity, they didn't exist as a nation. They were under some kind of occupation
mm-hmm.
by nations. From that time forward, they did not exist as a nation. And so they might have dwelt in the land, but they weren't recognized as a nation.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come all the way into the time of Christ, they're under Roman occupation. They're not even a nation. And then you go, think about this, from the occupation of Rome and the Roman Empire, the power of the Roman Empire, through all the rise and falls of nations, and they're still not a nation until 1948. So think about that, what I'm saying again. Why is Israel the proof text of prophecy? You see why people say that? The fact, there's no other nation in the history of the world that has had their land taken from them, their language taken from them, their identities taken from them, their genetics tried to be wiped off the map, literally, numerous times by numerous nations, try to be re-identified, and yet somehow or another keep coming out of that, which brings us to the prophecy of Ezekiel 37, which I saw in your notes.
Yeah.
Right? Ezekiel 37 is, your pastor's got a great memory, by the way. Ezekiel 37 is the dry bones coming back to life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he saw. And so think about the Holocaust and a nation all of a sudden coming up out of that, you know, and the recovery of that. I mean, you realize, let's say, I think at that time, if I remember right, and it's been a while since I've studied this portion, but I think if I remember right, the largest estimate that there was approximately 7 to maybe 8 million Jews worldwide.
I know it's a very small
How many was wiped
portion.
out in the Holocaust?
Like way more than that. Way
6
more.
million.
Yes.
Almost 6 million. So almost all the population wiped out.
Yeah, because it was over 50% of the Jewish population when it happened.
Yeah. So imagine all of a sudden a nation being born in a day on the heels of that, out of the ashes of that. And they had not been in existence as a sovereign territory since the carrying away into Babylon.
I'm going to combine the next two questions because you're already leading into them. So, why was Israel's restoration after the 2,000 years historically unique? And then, two, because the next question was, how does Ezekiel 37's vision of dry bones portray national resurrection? So,
Well, I think we've already answered that one.
yeah.
On the first part, the historic significance of it, again, there's no other nation in history that's had that track record, that's recovered like that. No people group has ever recovered like that. And, you know, for them to be able to do that, it has to be supernatural. And the blessing of God, again, that's the reason you'll hear people say Israel's the proof text of prophecy, because of all of the prophetic passages in the Bible, thousands of prophetic passages about Israel. I mean, there are hundreds of prophetic passages about Israel that could not be fulfilled without Israel being a nation. They have to be a nation for many of these prophecies. Ezekiel 38 and 39 and Jeremiah 17, I think, Isaiah 17 for sure, and destruction of Damascus, Syria, and all. And then all of the Psalm 83, the prophecies of Psalm 83, and I could go on and on and on. None of these prophecies make sense without Israel being in existence as a nation. So much of your Bible we could just throw out because, again, now you see why God has made this such a big deal, because His name is at stake on this. This is His name at stake. His integrity is at stake over this people group. And for whatever reason, He has chosen it to be that way. And He did not consult us about it. And so, and I'm glad, because I'm glad that He didn't consult anybody else about saving me and choosing me. So anyhow, that's the historical significance in a nutshell. We go much deeper down that hole, but
I have a further question.
Yeah,
so
let's
we're
go.
going to. This is in my notes, but I think like there's a lot of argument there because obviously there was other nations involved in establishing Israel as a nation after World War II. So kind of what role does that play? Because it's easy for people to be like, well, that's just because all of these Christian nations are following their religious text and making it happen. And the same thing is kind of, because the U.S. has a big role in a lot of things that Israel does now.
Yeah, I know. So let's just throw away the United States of America.
Okay.
Because England had a role in us getting here. And, France had a role because during the French-Indian War, they had to come in and rescue us as a nation. And, so let's just throw out every nation, because that's the history of every nation, is that other nations, people groups, they've assimilated or grown into something out of other people groups or tribes.
Yeah.
And that's such a lame argument. I'm not trying to be offensive, but I am. It's such a stupid, lame argument that just because God used an existing nation to declare the right of a nation, that they don't have a right. How else would they do it? They just going to grow up like a sprout out of the ground? How else will they do it as a people group?
True.
Right?
Because a lot of
So here's the argument. Here's the argument. This is how stupid the argument is. Gosh, this makes me mad. This is how stupid the argument is. Well, other nations had a role in putting them in this Zionistic regime in. They had a role, so therefore they're illegitimate, right? But if the children of Israel by themselves said, you know what? We're going to war against every nation that's in our territory, and we're going to raise ourselves up as a nation. The same people be griping and complaining about that. The same people be griping and complaining about that.
Because Israel could do it.
Because Israel could do it. They have done it. And I'm just telling you, so what about all the Islamic nations, Muslim nations, the Arab nations? You just going to do away with all of them because other nations had part in them getting started and getting going? And, and then they developed out of tribes and that assimilated into people groups. And, it's such a foolish argument. We'd have to dismantle every nation on the planet, which is really what they want to do. They don't want any sovereignty. They don't want any individuality because that's against their agenda, right? You can't be an individual. So anyway, I got to get off of that because I can feel my blood pressure going up.
He's in a mood today. We got to keep him calm.
Going up. My blood pressure is going up.
What did Jeremiah 23:7-8 mean by saying the future regathering would surpass the Exodus?
Okay. This is a powerful passage, so we're going to read it. Okay. All right? And I'm not just going to it because I don't know it, because I do know it.
Yeah. He told me the ones that you already knew.
Yeah. I do know it, but I want to read it. So this is, give me the passage. Jeremiah 23:7-8. Yeah. This is such a powerful passage that I got to go there. I do not want to, 7-8?
Yes.
All right. Therefore, behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when they shall no longer say, as the Lord lives, who brought up the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt. That's at Passover. So that he's talking about them celebrating Passovers. Because at every Passover, they share the story of coming out of the land of Egypt, out of 400 years bondage. He said there's coming a day when they won't even be talking about that. That deliverance from exile will be eclipsed by the regathering of a people group back into their homeland that have been spread throughout the four corners of the earth. So I'm going to read it. Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when they shall no longer say. Now again, this is one of those passages that could not be fulfilled without Israel being in existence today.
Because obviously, like when I read that, I'm like, yeah, Holocaust, like Jewish people.
Yeah. Well, let's don't even read that into it. Just, therefore, behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when they shall no longer say, as the Lord lives, who brought up the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But they'll say, as the Lord lives, who brought up and led the offspring of the house of Israel out of the north country and out of all the countries where he has driven them.
Mm-hmm.
They shall dwell in their own land.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So, and in around 69, 70 AD, you have the diaspora that really takes place around that time. The diaspora. Jews driven into the four corners of the earth, right? And since that time, think about how they were treated by, whether it's the Romans, many of the European countries, Spain especially. I mean, there are some historical documents that make you go down the road of believing that Christopher Columbus was possibly a Jew and was actually looking for a land to house the Jewish people because the Spanish Inquisition was happening at this time.
I haven't heard that one.
No, because they don't teach it anymore.
I haven't
But
heard that one.
here's what's interesting. Did you know that he signs his journal with a Jewish symbol? And did you know that he actually said on the journey in his journal that he felt like God was helping him fulfill the prophecies of Isaiah that talked about the Jewish people finding a safe place to dwell? And he felt like he was fulfilling that. So, you know, think about all the places where they've been persecuted. And then let's add this complexity to it. Think now about if you are Jewish. All of a sudden there's this desire for you to move to Israel. The logical part of this, I'm going to move to a country the size of Rhode Island that's surrounded by nothing but enemies that want to push me into the sea and destroy me and remove my name from existence.
Mm-hmm.
I want to move back to that land. I just have this desire. I've got to go home.
And a lot of people do.
And,
a lot of the Jewish people that live in Israel are from the U.S.
Exactly.
A lot of the young people.
So my point in saying that is, Israel, again, is the proof text of prophecy. But that scripture right there could never be fulfilled. Well, guess what? They sat around and talk about that. A huge discussion about how many millions and millions of Jews are moving back into the promised land, back into their homeland from the four corners of the earth. When he talks about the North Country, you'd be astounded at the amount of millions of Jews that have come out of Russia. Mm-hmm. And all of those areas, Turkey, Russia, all up through there, that have moved back into their homeland. And for them to do that and have this desire has to be spiritual, has to be God, and it has to be the fulfillment of this prophecy. It's the only thing that makes sense.
Okay, we might have already answered this one as well, a little bit,
yeah.
But I'm going to make you lay it out more plainly. What role did the Holocaust play in positioning Israel's prophetic return? Which, like I said, we've tiptoed around it.
Yeah, so, again, you see a very hellish, demonic, anti-Semitic agenda. And I'm going to really hurt a lot of people here, and this is probably going to stir up people that are watching. Do you know who Hitler based everything he did, the Holocaust, everything he did? On Martin Luther, one of the greatest early church fathers.
Yeah, but apparently Martin Luther was really messed up, I learned later.
Well, we're recording.
Sit. All right. Well, you guys, unfortunately, don't get our 20 minutes of rambling or that we just filmed. So we're going to do one last question, and then we're going to close this out. One, because I don't really know exactly where it cut off, and two, because it was entirely too long.
It cut off right when we were talking about Martin Luther and going into this real demonic kind of anti-Semitic stuff that's going on. And so my point, without going into it, and we'll just kind of tell you what we were talking about, is Martin Luther actually wrote a book called The Treaty on the Jews, and you can download it. And we were talking about the hatred and the anti-Semitic stuff and the origins coming all the way. This animosity between Christians and Jews is not new. It's old. It's ancient. It bled all the way up into the even the modern church. But it started, really AD 69, 70. When the dispersion took place and the Romans attacked Israel and Christians fled to the mountains because Jesus told them, flee. And the Jews felt abandoned. And from that point forward, Christians, by and large, have been hostile to the Jewish people. They'll say they love them, but they always seem to turn on them. And so there's naturally this mistrust between Christians and Jews, really more on the Jewish side than anything. But you've got to remember, everybody who said that they were going to protect them or be a friend to them has abandoned them throughout history. So therefore, it kind of creates a little bit of that in you naturally. So they naturally have their walls up. So this is not new. What we're seeing is not new. All the stuff we're hearing is not new. And that's basically what we're going into, and that's a good summation of it.
Yeah, that's a good actually ending point. So we're going to end it there.
All right.
This is your outro. So like, subscribe, follow, do all those things.
Yep.
And
do something. Even if it's a thumbs down, we don't care. Just do something.
Well, actually, don't do that, actually.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't listen to him on that one. Anyway.
Right. Hey, we got a special visitor who's going to be on the next show, so don't miss it.
Oh, God.
Oh, he's coming. He told me he's going to be here.
Oh, no.
Special guest. He's world famous, by the way, so you don't want to miss it.
Okay, we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.